In the courthouse bathroom, Dalton Reeves, 32 years old, stared at his reflection. Suddenly, his phone vibrated, an unknown number flashing across the screen. The cold words of the message read, "Your DNA test results are in. The woman you call mother shares no genetic markers with you." Dalton's hands trembled like autumn leaves in the wind, still reeling from the revelation in the conference room just 20 minutes prior. He had learned that Veronica, the woman he had sacrificed everything to save, was concealing an estate worth $280 million. Dalton had sold his thriving landscaping business, his cozy home, and emptied his retirement accounts to pay for her treatment, hoping for a miracle. Now, she was in the next room, signing papers to transfer every penny to Sterling Whitmore, the man she called her real son. The fluorescent lights mercilessly illuminated his face, making his reflection appear gaunt and weary. The man in the mirror looked older than his years, with sunken eyes that spoke of sleepless nights in hospital chairs and worry for the woman who raised him. But as it turned out, she wasn't just fighting for her life, she was buying time to orchestrate this monstrous betrayal. Suddenly, his phone rang again. Another unknown number, different from the last. Against his better judgment, Dalton answered. "Don't hang up," a man's voice, deep and insistent, with a slight southern drawl, said. "My name is Christopher Hendress. 30 years ago, my son was kidnapped from a supermarket parking lot in Phoenix. He was only 2 years old." "You have the wrong number," Dalton replied, but his voice wavered, as if anticipating something incredible. An unknown force tightened in his chest, as if his body knew what his mind had yet to grasp. "Your real name is Noah Hendress," Christopher continued, his voice cracking on the name, as if uttering a long-lost treasure. "The woman you call your mother, Veronica, was our nanny. She disappeared with you on March 15, 1994. We've been looking for you all these years." The bathroom walls seemed to close in around Dalton. Through the door, muffled voices from the conference room reached him, where Veronica, the woman who called herself his mother, was calmly dismantling his entire life with her lawyer, Mr. Goldman, transferring her vast fortune to Sterling Whitmore. "A crescent-shaped birthmark on your left shoulder blade," Christopher said, and Dalton's hand instinctively reached for his shoulder. "A scar on your right knee from when you were 2 years old. She told you it was from falling off a tricycle, didn't she? But that's a lie. It was a toy police car I bought you for your 2nd birthday. You were trying to stand on it to be as tall as me." A phantom pain shot through Dalton's knee, as if a memory from the distant past resurfaced. Mama Veronica always said he was so brave that he only cried for a minute and then asked to get back on the tricycle. But there was never a photo of that bike, and the story of where it went remained vague. "This is insane," Dalton whispered, but the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. He remembered how Veronica avoided talking about family, how she changed the subject when he asked about his father, and how she panicked when he mentioned DNA origin tests, calling them scams that stole genetic information. "Your mother, your real mother, Marina, never lost hope," Christopher continued, fighting back emotion. "She still sets a place for you at every Christmas dinner, every year, for 3 decades. Your sister Penelope became a doctor because she wanted to be ready to take care of you, to heal whatever was done to you when we found you." "Sister," Dalton choked out in a raspy whisper. He had grown up an only child, begging Veronica for a sibling until she said his birth was so difficult she couldn't have more children. Another lie in a string of deceptions. Deceit begets new troubles, like a snowball rolling down a mountain. "She was born 2 years after you disappeared. She's 28 now, working at Phoenix Children's Hospital, dedicating her life to finding you," the revelation continued. Through the slightly ajar bathroom door, Veronica's clear, icy voice reached him. "Ensure the transfer to Sterling is flawless. I don't want any complications." "But here's what you need to know immediately," Christopher said with growing urgency. "We're not rich people. I'm a retired mechanic, and Marina teaches piano lessons in our living room. All our savings went into searching for you. We hired private detectives, followed false leads scattered across the country. But our love for you never faded for a single day. And now Marina is very ill. Her heart is failing. But she's holding on with all her might, believing she'll see you before she dies." In the mirror's reflection, the face of a stranger flickered, features that seemed foreign, as if borrowed from ghosts he had never met, yet who had relentlessly searched for him. Just 3 months ago, he had lived a measured and happy life in Denver. His landscaping company had just secured its largest contract ever with the city's parks department. He was its sole owner, having built it from scratch after dropping out of college when his father passed away. Or rather, the man he thought was his father. His mother always claimed he died in a construction accident when he was 7, though now he doubted the very fact of his existence. Every morning, waking at 5, he would brew coffee in the kitchen of his modest ranch home in Arvada and head to the yard where his trucks were parked. 12 employees depended on him for their paychecks. Cherish, his foreman, had been with him since the beginning, when it was just the two of them with one lawnmower and a dream. Now, they had a fleet of trucks, professional equipment, and a reputation for transforming neglected yards into neighborhood envy. His mother, Veronica Reeves, lived 20 minutes away in Aurora, in the same 2-bedroom house where he grew up. The carpet was worn, the kitchen cabinets retained their ugly orange hue from the 70s, and the basement, where he spent his teenage years, still smelled of mildew. She drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a dented bumper she never bothered to fix, wore clothes from Target, and cut coupons from the Denver Post every Sunday. "Dalton, you work too hard," she would say every Sunday when he came for dinner. She'd make pot roast, invariably slightly overcooked, with mashed potatoes that were more like paste. "You need to slow down, find a good girl, give me some grandchildren before I'm too old to enjoy them." "I already found a good girl, Mom," he'd remind her. "You love Piper, remember?" "Oh, Piper is just wonderful," she'd reply, her face lighting up with a smile. "When are you going to make an honest woman out of her?" Piper Morrison was a kindergarten teacher. They met at a hardware store, both reaching for the last bag of premium potting soil. She laughed when he said he needed it for work, then surprised him by saying she was creating a garden for her class. Blonde hair always in a ponytail, paint stains on her jeans, and a smile that instilled a belief that the world was fundamentally good. They had been engaged for 6 months, planning a small backyard wedding at her parents' house next September. His mother worked as a consultant, as she put it, though she always evaded the details. "Oh, boring stuff with medical companies," she'd say when he asked. "Paperwork and regulations, nothing interesting." She worked from home, always at her old laptop at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers she'd hastily tuck into folders when he arrived. He assumed she was embarrassed by some low-paying data entry job, so he never pressed. She seemed to get by, and that was enough. His life was full of rhythm and meaning. Morning coffee with Piper before she left for school, days spent under the generous Colorado sun, hands in the dirt, creating beauty from chaos. Evenings dedicated to studying paint swatches for the house, planning an addition they would someday build for their children. Weekends spent hiking in the Rocky Mountains or working on personal projects, like the meditation garden he designed for a hospice, pro bono, because it felt right. It seemed that everything was going as it should. "You're just like your father," his mother would say, watching him work in her small yard, whether fixing a fence or planting tomatoes. David loved working with his hands, creating things that would last. However, she never delved into details, never shared specific memories, limiting herself to general phrases about a man who supposedly died when he was only 7, leaving no photos, no mementos, no relatives. He had friends, an established circle, his place in the world. Tommy, the bar owner where they played poker on Thursdays. Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who fed him cookies, thinking he was too thin. The guys at the garden center, saving the best plants for him, knowing he would give them good care. It was a life without frills, but real, honest, and his own. Looking back, he noticed the omens, the absence of baby photos before he was 3. Her nervousness when he mentioned wanting a genealogy test, the complete lack of any distant relatives, explained by families sometimes drifting apart. Her strange gaze, as if she saw someone else before her, then she would wave it off and smile. But just 3 months ago, he paid no mind. He had a good, simple, honest life, built on a foundation that seemed unshakable. He was Dalton Reeves, Veronica's son, a small business owner, a future husband, a father, a continuation of hard work and simple values. He couldn't imagine living someone else's, a stolen life. That Tuesday in April started as usual, until his mother called him at work. He was knee-deep in mulch, helping Jorge's crew finish the Riverside Park renovation, when his phone rang. Her voice was even, but beneath it, he detected something unfamiliar. Fear. "Dalton, I need you to come to Denver General Hospital, alone. Don't bring Piper." He rushed there, without changing, dirt under his nails and sawdust in his hair. He found her in room 447, looking even smaller than usual in a hospital gown that made her skin appear sallow. Dr. Nathaniel Park stood by her bed with a tablet displaying scan results, resembling storm clouds gathering in her abdomen. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 3B, he stated, not attempting to soften the blow. "The tumor has spread to nearby blood vessels and lymph nodes. With standard treatment, covered by insurance, we're looking at 6 to 11 months, Mr. Reeves." The world around him reeled. His mother squeezed his hand, her fingers cold and trembling. "It's okay, honey. I've had a good life." "There is another option," Dr. Park continued, scrolling through data on his tablet. "Johns Hopkins University offers an experimental treatment program combining targeted immunotherapy with a specialized surgical technique. The success rate for cases like yours is impressive. 40% achieve full remission." "Then we agree," he replied without hesitation. "The treatment hasn't been FDA approved yet. Insurance won't cover it. The total cost, including surgery, 6 months of treatment, and rehabilitation, will be around $670 million. That sum hung in the air, a tangible obstacle. His mother squeezed his hand even tighter. "Absolutely not. Dalton, we're leaving. I won't let you go broke for a 40% chance." "Mom, stop. We'll figure something out." That night, he sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by financial documents. His business could be sold, probably for $400,000, if he hurried and accepted the first offer. His house, bought just 2 years ago, might fetch around $200,000 if he was lucky. His retirement account, savings, work vehicles, equipment, all together might add another $80,000. Barely enough, even if he sold absolutely everything. In a desperate attempt to save the person closest to him, the hero is ready to go to extreme lengths, sacrificing everything he has. Piper, his beloved, found him in the middle of the night, armed with a calculator, meticulously listing all his assets for immediate sale. Her gaze, falling upon these papers, expressed extreme concern. She couldn't believe he was seriously considering such a step. Piper reminded him that his mother, undoubtedly, wouldn't want him to destroy his life's work, the business he poured his heart into, their shared home, their future plans, dreams of a wedding and children. But for him, all of this lost meaning in the face of his mother's potential loss. He declared that if he could save her, they would start anew, overcoming any difficulties together. However, Piper could not accept such recklessness. She couldn't calmly watch him sacrifice their shared future for a person who, in her opinion, had already lived her life. 2 weeks later, she made the painful decision to return to her parents' home, asking him to call when he came to his senses. But both understood that this wouldn't happen. In his desperation, Dalton quickly sold off his assets. A competitor offered $350 million for his company, and realizing the urgent need for money, he accepted. The house was sold to a cash buyer, $40,000 below the asking price. The trucks and equipment were practically given away at auction. The employees, though saddened by his decision, were understanding. Jorge even cried when he received his last paycheck with a generous bonus that Dalton could barely afford. Jorge called him a good son, but noted that no one should sacrifice everything for another. His mother, seeing his sacrifices, begged him to stop, saying she'd rather die than watch him ruin his life for her. Those words hurt him. He reminded her that after his father's death, she sacrificed everything for him, and now it was his turn to return the favor. At that moment, she would start to cry, deeply and inconsolably, and he interpreted these sobs as gratitude and guilt. But now he wondered if something else was hidden behind them, shame or fear that her carefully concealed lies were about to unravel, and that someone who didn't even suspect another's debts would have to pay for them. By June, Dalton had transferred the money to Johns Hopkins, moved into his mother's basement with 2 suitcases of clothes and a box of photos. Treatment began immediately. Every morning at 6, he drove her to the hospital, and in the evening at 8, he brought her home, weakened but not broken. By July, she had lost her hair. By August, her appetite was gone, but scans showed the tumor shrinking. After the first month of treatment, Dr. Park announced a 20% reduction in the tumor, after the second, 43, and after the third, 60. He called it a remarkable result. All those long days in the hospital, she held his hand and whispered that she didn't deserve him. Then, he thought she meant his devotion. Now, he understood she was speaking literally. He wasn't her son for her to deserve him. By October, she was in remission. A miracle had occurred. Dr. Park proudly showed them scans pointing out areas that just months ago were ravaged by cancer, now completely clear. The experimental treatment had exceeded all expectations. The doctor announced she was cancer-free, and although regular monitoring would be required, he was confident in a full remission. In the examination room, his mother hugged Dalton, sobbing into his shoulder. She said he had saved her life, giving up everything for her. He replied that he would do it again, and every word was sincere. He suggested they start over together, rent a small apartment, and perhaps even restart his business with her help. But as soon as they returned home, something changed. The grateful and emotional mother from the hospital room transformed into a distant and distracted woman. She began taking phone calls in her bedroom, locking the door. When Dalton knocked to say dinner was ready, he would hear her hurried whisper, then silence. Afterwards, she would emerge, pretending nothing had happened. One evening, after the 5th call of the day, he couldn't take it anymore and asked who kept calling. One evening, after the 5th phone call of the day, Dalton's voice held undisguised weariness. "Just medical insurance," his mother murmured, avoiding eye contact, as if ashamed of her persistence. "You know how relentless they can be," she added, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. Soon, lawyers began appearing at their doorstep. 3 respectable men in expensive suits visited their home within 2 weeks. Each time his mother claimed Dalton was at an interview. But one day, he returned early, dejected and disappointed after another rejection, and found her at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of documents, and a man whose services, it seemed, were billed at a rate exceeding his weekly salary. "Dalton," she said, slightly flustered, "this is Mr. Goldman. He's helping me with estate planning. After my illness, I realized I needed to get my affairs in order." "What inheritance?" Dalton asked, bewildered. "Mom, we don't have anything, Mr. Goldman and his mother exchanged glances that Dalton couldn't decipher. "Just preparing," she replied. "Why don't you go rest? You look exhausted." The secret phone calls became more frequent. His mother began leaving the house for mysterious meetings, explaining them as follow-up doctor visits, but invariably declined Dalton's offers to drive her. She bought new, expensive clothes, paying with cash that Dalton believed she shouldn't have. When he tried to find out the origin of these items, she brushed him off, saying she bought them at a thrift store, but Dalton saw a Nordstrom bag hidden in the trash. 2 weeks before the fateful day at the courthouse, his mother made a request that began to unravel the tangled web of lies. "Dalton, I need you to come with me tomorrow at 2 p.m. to Goldman & Partners downtown. It's very important." To a lawyer? Why? Dalton wondered. "We need to review some documents, both of us, about the future." Dalton assumed it might be about life insurance he didn't know about. Perhaps it was something that could help them get back on their feet. He put on his only decent suit, which he saved for interviews, and they drove downtown to the financial district. The glass and steel building rose 40 stories, a symbol of a world where multi-million-dollar deals were commonplace. At the reception desk, his mother was greeted by a different name. "Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Goldman is ready for you." "Whitmore?" Dalton asked, bewildered, as they walked to the conference room. His mother's face remained impassive. "We have something to discuss," she replied dryly. The conference room was so spacious it could have fit their entire house. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Denver, and the polished mahogany table reflected their faces like dark mirrors. Mr. Goldman sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 other lawyers. Documents, bank statements, investment portfolios, and property deeds were spread across the table. "What is all this?" Dalton asked, picking up a Swiss bank account statement with a sum that took his breath away. $28 million, another from the Cayman Islands for $40 million, property in New York, London, Tokyo. "My inheritance," his mother replied in an even businesslike tone. "My late husband, Theodore Whitmore, passed away 15 years ago." "Theodore Whitmore? The pharmaceutical magnate? Mom, what are you talking about? Dad was David Reeves. He died when I was 7. She let out a short, cold laugh. David Reeves never existed. I made him up. A convenient story for a convenient life. Theodore was my husband, my real husband. We were married for 23 years before his death. Dalton's mind refused to process what he heard. But I remember, Dad. You told me stories. I told you fiction. You were a mistake, Dalton. A complication before Theodore when I was young and foolish. Theodore never knew about you. I hid you, raised you separately, while I lived my real life with him. Are you saying my entire childhood was a lie? Dalton asked bitterly. A necessary lie. But now everything must be corrected. Theodore's son from his first marriage, Sterling Whitmore, deserves his father's estate. I've been in contact with him for months. He's a good man, a worthy heir. She pushed a document across the table. It states that the $670,000 for my treatment was your inheritance. You relinquish all future claims to the Whitmore estate. In the courtroom, a drama unfolded, determining destinies and fortunes. The protagonist faced an ultimatum from the woman he believed to be his mother: relinquish all rights to the Whitmore estate. This demand came like a bolt from the blue, especially after he had sacrificed all his possessions to save her life. You want me to give up money I didn't even know existed after I sold everything to save your life? He questioned, trying to comprehend what was happening. In response, he heard only cold calculation. You saved a life worth saving. That should be enough. Leaving Veronica and her lawyers with a pile of documents and the prospect of managing $280 million, the hero exited the courtroom. The elevator ride down from the 40th floor felt like a descent into hell. In the reflection of the steel doors, he saw only the shadow of a man, empty and broken. In the courthouse restroom, trying to compose himself, he received a message with DNA test results he had never ordered. Then Christopher's call came, and his world completely overturned. It turned out he wasn't just betrayed. His identity had been stolen. We have proof, Christopher insisted. Your biological mother, Marina, kept everything. Police reports, private detective files, even the clothes you disappeared in. A little blue shirt with a dinosaur. She hasn't let anyone touch it for 30 years. Skepticism and disbelief warred within him. Why should I believe you? How do I know this isn't another lie? He asked. Because I'm not asking you for anything, Christopher replied. I'm not asking you to sign papers, relinquish claims, or pretend the last 30 years didn't happen. I'm just asking you to come home and meet your real family, the family that never stopped looking for you. Christopher revealed Veronica's cunning plan, stating that Sterling Whitmore was not the rightful heir, but Veronica's nephew, whom she had groomed for this role for years, transferring money to him through offshore accounts. As proof, Christopher sent a photo. The old faded picture showed a young couple standing in front of a small ranch with a baby in their arms. The man was recognizable as a younger Christopher, and the woman, Marina, had striking green eyes with golden flecks. The baby was laughing, reaching for something above the camera, and a fresh bandage was visible on his knee. That was 3 days before you were taken, Christopher explained. You had just fallen off your toy police car. Marina had just taught you to say, I love you in Spanish, because she wanted you to know both languages. You called her Mama Luna because she sang you a lullaby about the moon every night. A memory like an echo from the distant past resonated in his heart. A soft female voice, humming a lullaby about the moon protecting a little one. Veronica was our nanny for 6 months, Christopher continued. We trusted her completely. She seemed to love you as her own. Then one day Marina went to pick you up from the park, where Veronica had taken you, and both of you were gone. She left a note saying she was sorry, but she deserved a better life. We thought it was a ransom, a kidnapping situation. We waited for demands that never came. She never asked for money. No, she took something more valuable. She took you and hid you in plain sight, far enough away that we would never cross paths, but close enough that she could use Theodore Whitmore's resources when necessary. Through the bathroom door, voices from the hallway drifted in. Among them, Veronica's voice, discussing bank transfers and inheritance distribution. The woman who raised him was just meters away, calmly destroying his life while simultaneously building Sterling Whitmore's fortune. The story of Noah's reunion with the Whitmore family unfolds against a backdrop of dramatic events and financial manipulations. Christopher, Noah's father, shares the heartbreaking news about Penelope, Noah's sister, who dedicated her life to medicine to care for him upon his return. She meticulously studied Noah's photos, read works on childhood trauma, and prepared for her role as his sister. But fate had other plans. Penelope is battling congestive heart failure, and doctors give her mere months. Despite this, she believes in her brother's return and waits for him. At this moment, Noah contemplates Sterling Whitmore's fortune, the $280 million that could secure his future. To get it, he only needs to return to the conference room, sign the papers, and accept Veronica's meager offerings, acknowledging that his entire life was part of a deal. Christopher reminds Noah of his self-sacrifice for Veronica's treatment, of selling his business and home. He emphasizes that these actions speak to his true nature, a loving and generous person, just as he was as a child. The Whitmore family is not wealthy. They are simple people living in a modest home, but their hearts are full of love for a son whose return they never stopped hoping for. Noah makes a decision. He rejects the money and decides to go home. At Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, his parents greet him with a "Welcome Home, Noah" sign. Behind them stands Penelope in medical scrubs, holding a photo album like a shield. Marina, seeing her son, tries to rise from her wheelchair, but Christopher holds her back. Her eyes, like Noah's, fill with tears that have waited 30 years. She whispers, "My baby," and embraces him. Christopher joins them, weeping with joy. Penelope, after a slight hesitation, also hugs Noah. Photos from the album scatter across the floor. Pictures of a little boy Noah doesn't remember, artistic sketches, everything that might help find the stolen child. "I'm your sister," she says, as if reassuring herself. "I've been your sister my whole life, waiting to meet you." The weeks that follow turn Noah's life upside down. The FBI, armed with his testimony, arrests Veronica at her secret mansion in Cherry Hills, where she had been pretending to be poor. Sterling Whitmore is apprehended in Miami, where he was preparing to receive his first payment. Their plans, years in the making, had been accelerated by the illness, and they needed Noah's signature on the documents while he was emotionally vulnerable from losing everything. But Noah pays no attention to the news and legal proceedings. He is busy learning about his real life. Marina, despite her fragile health, teaches him the lullaby she sang to him as a child, the one about the moon. Her fingers, swollen from medication, still gracefully glide across the piano keys. The elderly woman, whose hands bore the marks of years spent at the keys, slowly touched the instrument. "I played this melody every night," she said with a tremor in her voice, "even after you disappeared for 3 decades, hoping you would hear its echoes and recognize it." Christopher, his father, showed him his workshop in the garage, where year after year he had created toys for the son who wasn't there. Rocking horses, exquisitely crafted wooden trains, model cars, each more complex than the last, patiently awaited their time. "I needed something to keep my hands busy," he shared, running his calloused fingers over the smooth fuselage of a toy airplane. "If I stopped making things for you, it would be like admitting that your return was impossible." Penelope introduced me to Marcus, her husband, and their 5-year-old twin sons, Diego and Sam, who greeted their newfound uncle with genuine delight. She dedicated herself to working at Phoenix Children's Hospital, specializing in trauma rehabilitation. "I chose to be a doctor to help children in pain," she confessed one evening as we watched the boys play in the yard. "But truthfully, I think I was always preparing to help you heal when you came home." Marina's surgery was scheduled for mid-December, a triple bypass, high risk given her condition. The night before the operation, we gathered by her hospital bed. She seemed so frail, but a bright fire burned in her eyes. "I can go if I need to," she said, squeezing my hand. "I saw you again. I saw that you persevered, that you grew into a kind and decent man, despite everything." "You're not going anywhere," I assured her. "We have 30 years to make up for." She successfully underwent the surgery and recovered, and on Christmas morning, as Phoenix was covered in a rare snow that made news headlines, we gathered around the table in her modest home. Marina truly had set a place for me every year. And this year, I finally took my seat. "You know what's amazing?" Christopher remarked, carving the turkey with surgical precision. "You found yourself in landscaping, working with your hands, creating beauty. It's in your genes, son. It's from us." The investigation revealed that Veronica had embezzled funds from Theodore Whitmore's estate for years, totaling approximately $3 million, hiding them in accounts linked to my fabricated identity. The FBI froze all these funds. The legitimate Whitmore heirs will reclaim their estate. Sterling will face charges for fraud. Veronica was sentenced to 20 years in prison for kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. But money had lost all meaning for me. I had found something immeasurably more valuable. I started a new life in Phoenix, using a small loan from a friend of Christopher's to open my landscaping company. It's more modest than the one I had before, but it's built on honesty. Jorge, my former foreman, came from Denver to help me get started, bringing 3 of my former employees who wanted to return to me. "A good boss is worth following," Jorge declared, "even if he first needs to find himself." Penelope's sons helped me on weekends, getting their hands dirty in the soil, learning the truth that good things grow when you care for them. Marina, slowly recovering, watches from the porch, happy to see her son teaching his nephews, exactly as she had always dreamed. Sometimes I reflect on those 30 years of lies, on a woman so broken that she had to kidnap another's child to feel complete. Veronica wrote me a letter from prison 6 months into her sentence. I never opened it. Penelope offered to read it to me if I wanted to know its contents. "No," I told her. "I know everything I need to know. She was never my mother. She was just the one who took me from my real family." The truth is, love doesn't demand payment. It doesn't hide behind lies, wear masks, or keep score of who owes whom what. Real love waits 30 years for a stolen child to come home. It builds toy airplanes for a boy who isn't there. It becomes a doctor to heal wounds that haven't yet been inflicted. It sings lullabies in an empty room, believing that somewhere in the universe it is heard. In the universe, somewhere in its boundless expanse, the call of destiny echoes. Noah Hendris, a man whose life was distorted by deceit and loss, tells his story. He was kidnapped, deceived, and stripped of everything he had ever built. But in this tragedy, amidst the ruins of Dalton Reeves's false history, he discovered his true self. Noah Hendris. He found the truth, whose value is immeasurably greater than any wealth. He met a mother whose hope never waned, a father who continued to build, a sister who was always ready for his return, and nephews for whom he is simply Uncle Noah, as if it were always meant to be. And it is natural, real, true. After 32 years lived in the shadow of lies, the truth became a homecoming. Marina, day by day, regains her strength. Yesterday, for the first time since the surgery, she gave piano lessons again, and the sounds of music filled the house with the light of hope. Christopher shares the secrets of carpentry with him, saying, "My hands remember what my mind forgot." Penelope brings the boys every Sunday for family dinners, at a table where there was always a place for him, waiting for his return. Sometimes the boys ask why he was gone for so long, and then they are told the truth, adapted to their understanding. For despite all the vicissitudes of fate, family always finds its way back to each other, and love always comes home. This is a narrative about losing everything that seemed one's own and gaining what always rightfully belonged to him. It is a story of how trials reveal a person's true essence and how losses show what one never truly had. But above all, it is a story of the unbreakable bonds of a real family, which, having survived 3 decades of separation, only grows stronger and is ready to make up for every lost day.